The Taj Mahal is defined by mathematical perfection, an architecture of total symmetry. But while this tomb rose in Agra, the empire's foundation was failing. To finance this single project, the state would eventually divert grain from starving provinces, extract over half of all peasant produce and taxes, and hand the levers of government to a parallel administration. The crisis began on June 17, 1631, in a military camp in Burhanpur. Empress Mumtaz Mahal died following a 30-hour labor with her 14th child. She wasn't a silent figure in the palace. She was the emperor's chief political advisor and the keeper of the Mohr-Uzaha, the imperial seal required to validate every state decree. Her death removed the most crucial operator from the Mughal government. Without her to validate the paperwork of the state, the empire's administrative centers suddenly stalled, forcing a total reorganization of how power was exercised. Emperor Shah Jahan withdrew from the public entirely. For 2 years, he refused to appear at his balcony audience or wear imperial robes. Chroniclers noted his hair turned white rapidly, and his back became bent. The man who sat on the peacock throne effectively vanished from state life. 17th century India ran on paper, and that paper required a stamp. Every tax mandate, every troop movement, and diplomatic response was stuck in a bottleneck because the imperial seal, the Mohr-Uzaha, was no longer applied. To break the deadlock, the court turned to the emperor's 17-year-old daughter, Princess Jahanara. She was elevated to Padshah Begum and handed the imperial seal, giving her final veto power over state correspondence. To match this political weight, she was granted the revenues of Surat, the empire's wealthiest port, allowing her to build a private mercantile fleet to trade with the Dutch and English. While the emperor grieved, Jahanara managed the bureaucracy from behind a curtain screen. She resolved family disputes and mediated with foreign ambassadors, establishing a powerful harem bureaucracy that maintained the empire while its ruler remained in isolation. Before this era, the Mughals built in red sandstone. It was the material of the Akbar and Jahangir reigns, rugged, practical, and associated with the warrior caste. In traditional Indian texts, red stone was the color of the soldier and the fortress. Shah Jahan broke this tradition. He ordered the entire mausoleum of the Taj Mahal to be built from pure white Makrana marble. Until this point, an all-white structure was reserved almost exclusively for the tombs of Sufi saints. This shift moved the dynasty's image. By using the stone of saints, Shah Jahan was claiming a form of spiritual purity for his house. The empire was no longer just a military machine. It was presenting itself as a sacral entity, aligned with the divine. The layout reinforced this claim. Most Mughal tombs sit in the center of a garden, but the Taj Mahal is pushed to the northern riverfront. Some historians argue this maps a specific religious diagram. The garden represents paradise, and the white tomb represents the throne of God on the Day of Judgment. This wasn't a secular project. The Taj Mahal was engineered to position Shah Jahan's rule as an earthly reflection of divine justice, even as the real-world economy began to fracture. While the court worked in marble, the provinces were dying. The Deccan Famine of 1630 claimed an estimated 4 million lives. 3 years of crop failures, locusts, and floods led to reports of desperate populations grinding bones into flour to survive. The state's spending reflected a specific choice. Over 22 years, the Taj Mahal consumed 32 million silver rupees. In contrast, the administration allocated just 150,000 rupees for direct famine relief over a 20-week period, distributed primarily on the day of the emperor's accession. To feed the 20,000 laborers at the Taj Mahal construction site, the government requisitioned grain carriers, the Banjaras. They diverted food from productive outlying areas like Malwa to Agra, which skyrocketed rural wheat prices 16-fold and worsened the shortages in the starving provinces. To replenish the treasury, the state intensified its tax collection. Under the Zabd system, the government extracted up to 56.7% of all agricultural produce from the peasantry. This high rate was required to offset a building project that created no new trade routes or irrigation. The empire's visual triumph relied on this economic squeeze. The flawless white facade was bought by draining the resources of a collapsing agrarian base. This spending created a structural crisis. To fund his architectural projects, Shah Jahan expanded the Khalisa, lands that sent revenue directly to the central treasury. This chart shows the impact on the nobility. As treasury lands grow, the paibaki, the land reserves used to pay officer salaries, shrank. By the mid-17th century, over 8,000 officers were competing for these dwindling salary assignments, leading to intense factionalism. When Shah Jahan fell ill in 1658, these financial tensions boiled over. The empire's stability was already hollowed out by decades of monumental spending, and his 4 sons began a fratricidal war to seize what remained of the treasury. The functional noble class had been transformed by fiscal pressure. The War of Succession wasn't just a quest for power, it was the explosion of an empire that had destabilized its own military and financial foundations. Aurangzeb won the war and imprisoned his father inside the Agra fort. For his final 8 years, Shah Jahan lived in a room with a single view, the white marble tomb he had built for his empress. The Taj Mahal was built on the principle of Karina, perfect bilateral symmetry. Every element on the left must be mirrored exactly on the right. In the Mughal mind, this was the ultimate visual symbol of absolute, centralized control. When Shah Jahan died in 1666, his body was carried across the river. Aurangzeb decided to bury him in the lower crypt of the Taj Mahal, right beside Mumtaz Mahal. The space was mathematically designed for one person. By adding a second, larger sarcophagus, the builders were forced to break the symmetry. Shah Jahan's tomb sits at an angle, the only asymmetrical element in the entire complex. That single, off-center tomb is the physical record of the reign's end. The perfect symmetry of the state was finally broken by the same private grief that had shaped it.